Okay, I've had a lot of requests to see my indoor greenhouse grow chamber for my nepenthes, so I'm gonna give you guys a little run through real quick. This is my basement. I'll go wide angle for most of this video, I'm sure. Um, I've got this corner over here where my plants used to be growing. I used to have a shelf right here along the wall, and I'm just kind of utilizing holes that already existed, but basically I wanted a highland chamber because that's what most of the plants that I want are. And having it outside here is just not realistic because the heat during the winter that it would take to keep it warm enough would be just outrageous, and don't even get me started about the summer. So it just made sense to have this in my basement. It's not too intrusive. It actually looks pretty cool over here. And yeah, so let me give you a little rundown on the equipment, and then I'll show you the plants and some of the water preventative jobs I did. Don't mind the wiring over here. It's a little bit of a mess right now. I've just kind of been trying to figure out what works well before I tie it all up nice, but basically this runs the humidifier. It's just a 12 head ultrasonic humidifier style. This is my AC Infinity 69 Pro controller, and coincidentally that's not actually like that because of the name of the controller. It's just the temperature in there right now. But anywho, that's a little timer for a fogger. You get those on eBay. These are the power supplies for my lights. They're Meanwells. They produce about 54 volts DC, and I think they're like a amp and a half, 2 amps. I have never had a problem with these burning out or anything. They don't work very hard for me, so I dig them. Some of them are running one color spectrum. The other ones are running another color spectrum. I could have just gone with all white LEDs, but as you can see, some of those are more of an amber color. I need to clean this plexiglass, but it doesn't really make a huge difference, but I do want to hit the wider spectrum, so you get you some nice color. But everything's on the same dimmer. I'm running them at 80% brightness right now. And yeah, the rest of this is basically just powered. So these 4 ports are controlled by this AC Infinity controller, and basically you've got AC, humidity, which is running I have a little mini splitter instead of using this big thing. It breaks out to 2. I didn't want to hardwire anything, but basically it's a computer fan power supply, and this one goes to this guy. And then this is, can't remember what that is. Sorry, AC. Oh, that's the misting system. Sorry. And then I got to get my heater in here, and it'll be powered off that too. Just a little space heater, won't take too much. Yeah, the rest of that's just permanent power. That one right there is actually the lights on off. I was going to use the AC Infinity controller to do that, but I don't really do anything except legitimately just turn the lights on and off. I'm not dimming or anything, so I'd rather keep the 4th port for heating. But yeah, this is all just kind of over here on the side. I might make a little enclosure for it. I don't know. I think once I clean it up, it'll look a lot better. And you know, it's kind of back here in the corner anyway, so it doesn't really bother anybody or anything. But this greenhouse is called a Pal Ram Lean-To. It's 8 foot long, and the plexiglass portion or plastic portion is 4 feet deep. I kind of decided, because of the space that this is in, I wanted it a little bit deeper because I wanted to be able to go in there and hang out, walk around without having to struggle and lose grow room. So I added basically this 1 foot deep extension off the back. These are 2x12, and these 2x12s are used on the back wall portion of this, and they're also used around the entire baseboard and that back section. Now, the reason the back section of the floor is made out of a 2x12 rather than just extending the base of this is I wasn't sure how much water the floor would be taking on through daily activities, so I wanted to leave myself a good solid substrate for me to mount like a bulkhead to if I need to put a floor drain in there or something fancy like that. So yeah, anywho, you kind of get the basic construction. It's nothing crazy. I've got some 4 foot by 8 foot sections of plywood on the back. Everything is stained and sealed. The bottom is sealed with lacquer, and I went really heavy on it. It's almost slippery when you put your hand across it. Same on the inside wall of this. The top of it and the outside are sealed with polyurethane, and the back wall is sealed with clear polyurethane also. So, you know, a lot of people are like, it's not going to last, it's not going to stay waterproof, blah, blah, blah. You need to use the boat epoxy. Look, I get it. The boat epoxy is really expensive. So the cost of this thing up front was just going to be a lot. And, you know, you don't really exactly what it is that's going to work right off the bat the first time around when you come to, like, you know, where do you need holes in the wood. Yeah, I could model this up and kind of plan it out, but just these environments take a little bit of tuning to get them to do everything you want them to do. So I wasn't about to spend some really expensive budget on a bunch of boat epoxy to waterproof this wood like permanently when I don't even know if I'm gonna have to change some of the stuff on this. So first time around, polyurethane lacquer, and it seems to be doing pretty good. We're almost a month into having water exposed to this, maybe 3 weeks. And I'm pretty pleased with it so far. So there's the roof. It's that twin wall style plexi. It's not actually plexi. It's like a, I can't remember what it's called, but it's that typical cheap greenhouse plexi. But it's actually really, I like the quality of this compared to some of the cheaper ones I've seen in person. And this is meant for outside, so it does have a gutter, which is kind of cool, but I don't have a use for it. There's a little window on the top you can prop open if you want to get some air exchange going. I'm not using it right now. Anywho, this is made out of a pretty thin plastic, and it is, you know, it's flimsy, but I put these panels through some abuse trying to build this thing, and I was actually quite surprised by how strong this is. So I'm not worried about it breaking or cracking or anything. It's just annoying because before I made them not shake around, whenever you did this, the entire body of this thing would rattle like it was shaking in its skin. So I used little dots of hot glue every here and there all throughout it, and you don't really notice them, but it really helps keep the panel from rattling back and forth inside of the channels that it sits in. And, you know, then when I do end up moving houses in the future, I can easily take this back apart and break it down or whatever. And that's another thing I wanted to talk to you guys about. This greenhouse is obviously easy to break down. It would take, you know, a couple hours to do it, but it is doable. This entire thing is built to be able to be taken down and moved because I plan to keep this setup until the wood don't last no more. So everything was sealed while it was in its own pre-cut piece. So what I mean by that is I built the base, glued it together, and sealed it. So the base is one piece, but each of these panels on the back, these are all one piece. So when you unbolt this or unscrew it, there's no like bald spots where there's no sealant or stain or, you know, it's all sealed individually. So when you take this back apart, each piece of wood is its own thing, if you get what I'm saying. Now, I didn't want to leave any gaps between wood panels, so I had to seal it, but I didn't want to do something permanent. And actually, before I step in here, I'll grab the product that I used. It's called DAP Seal and Peel. It's an all-season removable weather strip sealant. So basically, this is meant to like seal up windows through a winter. And you can see the humidifier running because I just opened the door. And basically, it's meant for like old houses with cheap windows. You can seal around the window, keep it closed for the winter, summer, whatever. And then when the weather's nice, you can peel the sealant out and then use your window like nothing happened. And I'm actually kind of familiar with this substance because I've used it in the automotive world. I kind of figured out that it's the same product called Auto Goop, and Auto Goop is like an interior sealant. It dries kind of like a more rubbery, flexible-ish hot glue that you can later peel off of stuff and remove. And the longer you leave it, the harder it gets. But the idea was that I can take this apart and be able to peel that stuff off instead of having to scrape in sand. And I fully expect to have to when I move this thing to, you know, reseal wood, that's just a maintenance item for when this moves. You just got to keep that in mind. But I'm hoping that while this is set up in this house for the next couple years, I shouldn't have to do too crazy for the wood. And, you know, if I have a piece of wood that gets gross, it's not crazy expensive or hard to change stuff out. It would just be a little day project on the weekend. So, anywho, enough rambling. Let me take you through some of the equipment. So, for cooling, I originally tried a standalone AC unit that you like set in front of a window and the hot air goes outside, and that did not work out. I tried a couple different configurations. I had it set up in the back room, set up in this greenhouse, and let it kick the air all the way outside, and it did not like that either. So it was just basically the AC unit was sucking up the cold air that it was producing to cool the hot side of itself down, and then ejecting that heat outside instead of recirculating the cooled or chilled air inside of the greenhouse back through itself to further cool it more. There's just too much air getting rejected outside, and then this thing would turn into a vacuum and it would suck a bunch of hot air from the basement in. So it became pretty prevalent that I needed a mini split. So I got this trade-in mini split. It's a couple-year-old version. I wanted a cheap one. I think I spent like $300 or $400 on it. It is very nice. The hot side of it is outside. It's not one of the Wi-Fi models or anything. I basically just set this thing to absolutely as cold as it can go, and then the AC Infinity controller turns it on and off throughout the night. That way, the AC Infinity controller can be told the temperature during the day and a temperature during the night, and it just turns that on and off. And there's settings to keep it from turning it on and off too fast, or too much, so you don't burn out the compressor or anything. You just have to do some tuning, and it actually works very, very well. I can post pictures of the temperature curve if you'd like, but it is hardwired into this liquid type box. This is the drain line for it, and the drain line really gets some water moving out of here, which I think is actually quite good for the plants, because then you don't have a bunch of stagnant water in here. It's constantly sucking the humidity out of the air, putting it in the drain line, running it through to the floor drain in the next room, and then my humidifier is constantly rehumidifying this room with fresh water. So hopefully that gives the air a little bit of a washing effect instead of getting really gross in here. But yep, so that's the mini split. It's kind of hard to see the lights, but they are Samsung LED strips. I can provide links. I've used these for many years, growing that guy and this Rob Cantley guy and my Sanguinea that I just keep cutting back, and it just keeps turning into a monster. And as you can see, you get some really good coloration out of these lights. And you know, I mean, they're what, 4 feet off the plants, and that's what they were on the wall out here before I brought them in here. And I have even more lights over them now. Now, it used to be 2 LED strips wide on the plants at this height. Now it's 3 LED strips wide this high off of the plants. So I should be even more overkill than I was out there, and I'm at the same distance as I was outside. So yeah, anywho, well, hopefully I don't burn any plants, but I can turn it up or down if need be. And I'm not against adding another strip if I find that all the plants handle it and I want to turn it up some. But as you can see, I'm growing some plants like Nepenthes hamata that don't like really, really, really bright light. Now, my setup has not grown these 2 plants. These 2 are brand new to me. I just got them yesterday. I have grown... Oop, there goes the misting system. I have grown Nepenthes hamata before in a previous grow setup, and just to show you guys where I'm coming from, I might take you over to the other room and show you the other setup. But hamata does not really like super bright lights, as you can tell. It's got some leaf burn from the last guy, I guess. But yeah, anywho, it looks like it's doing pretty good. It's not turning dark yet. I know it's only been 24 hours, but if you take pictures of your plants, you can really notice a difference pretty quickly. But anywho, the Rob Cantley eye really likes my Samsung LEDs. This thing has just done wonders for me, and it's got a new picture coming out right now around back, so we'll see how that turns out. So, yep, lights. As you saw, the misting system went off. I have nozzles all across the top. There's 9 of them. And then in the corners of this, the mist likes to fall out of the corners and towards the center. So I had to add a misting head here and there to kind of point some mist into the corners. And as you saw when it ran, it gets everything pretty evenly, even though all the mist kind of falls to the front. But you just get that gentle misting effect across the top of leaves. And it's not so much water that, let me see if I can zoom in on that. It's not so much water that it's gonna like soak everything, but it's just a nice little mist. These guys seem to like that, so we'll see how that goes. But 80% humidity during the day, actually 75% humidity during the day, and 90 to 95% humidity at night. And it maintains it very well. You would know if it wasn't because the humidifier would be running. So let's talk about the water supply for this room. This box, I guess I'll pop it open, why not? This box is filled with RODI water, and I can show you the RODI setup if you want, but it's pretty basic. As you can see, you got the 12 head humidifier chilling back there floating. And I got it underneath that hose a little bit because this water level dropped yesterday because I watered the plants. But there's the float that keeps the container full. That blue line goes to a big pump, which I can turn on and off, and it feeds the garden hose. So when I water once a week, it's no big deal. And you can see the water movement because I have another little pump in there that circulates the water. And that's really all that's going on in there. There's a computer fan that pressurizes this container, and then that's the outlet, so I can plumb it to wherever I want in here if I want to later. And this box does have a weather seal in it. It's a pretty nice box. It wasn't very cheap. It was almost $40, which in the grand scheme of things is nothing crazy, but for a container, it's pretty expensive. But I wanted that because I don't have to worry about water running down the sides and losing air all over the place. It just fills it up. And as you saw, humidity comes out really well. The humidifier pump is sitting back here in the corner. Got the inlet outlet. It pulls through the side of the container through a little carbon filter at the bottom, and then it runs up this line and pressurizes the system. This is the RO water supply line that comes from the RO system in the room next door. Drain line, PVC. It's not glued and it does not leak, thankfully. That's just because I want this all to be able to come back apart. And if a little bit of water drips on the ground, I'm not worried about it. This thing is, as you can see, it's sealed quite well. But yeah, these trays on the table are actually trays for a dog kennel, and I just bought the biggest ones that they had, and they fit on this table nicely. I made the table a little oversized because you're not going to have a plant right here. I wanted to leave a strip so later if I wanted to, I could put a lip across the front of this shelf. So when this does get crammed and I do find myself putting plants farther to the front, I can come in and put a little wall right here so I don't have accidents. This is just shelving from Lowe's that was originally white, and I spray painted it with bed liner. I put it in here too quick. It's still kind of sticky, but it is actually slowly drying. I've used it before. It's never taken this long to dry, but probably the humidity. I did paint it outside, but whatever. But yeah, I'm sure there's more that I'm forgetting, and this makes it seem really, really simple, and it is kind of a simple setup, but this took me a good 2.5 months for me to piece together and build. But I basically just knew what to do because I've always wanted to do this. So this is the setup for now. In the future, I will probably build a little 6-inch deep shelf across the back wall here. That's pretty close to the plants, and I'll put some helium phoras up there. And then I might do a little shelf across the front of this for some like little seedling neps. And I do plan to put, this fan's gonna go away. I'm gonna get some smaller ones and put them up top and point them down at the plants, because while this does get good circulation in here, it's very loud. This might get turned and sat in the corner a little more, because underneath here I do plan to put like a little shelf somewhere with some of my Samsung LEDs under here, and I'll turn them down nice and low and kind of grow some smaller compact plants down here. I plan to pack this thing out, but I've already got a lot of room, as you can see, so that's all for the future. But yeah, I'm impressed by the greenhouse quality. I got a good deal on this from someone who had it sitting on their porch for a couple of years. You can see I got my camera in here so I can monitor stuff. And this is battery powered, so if I lose power to the greenhouse, like a breaker trips or something, I can still see stuff. And in case the power does trip, I have an Inkbird sensor in here, so I can keep monitoring the temp and humidity even if I trip a breaker. That way, if I'm out of town or something, I know if I need to call someone and have them come over here to fix it. But this thing has tripped the breaker a couple times when space heaters or something get plugged in the basement. I think this thing is pulling close to 13 amps when the AC is running at night. So I am probably going to add a dedicated breaker in my breaker box in the back room. And when I do that, I will just run it out to the wall out here, and then this greenhouse will be on its own breaker and I won't have to worry about it. But that's another project for the future. This is my Hamata edwardacea I got off eBay. I'm super excited to see what it does in the future. It is a pretty sizable plant, and the picture to leaf ratio is crazy. Same with this Hamata. I love these. These are my favorite. And I'm a big fan of my Rob Cantley. It's just been around me for, 4 years now. I got it when it was the size of this leaf. So it's fun to have new stuff in here. But anywho, if you guys want to see anything specific, comment, whatever, and I'll make you some videos, and I can post some more stuff as I do more stuff in here. I hope I get some live long fibered sphagnum growing in here. I got some that I kind of spread out through a couple pots to see if I can get it going. The misting system runs once an hour, so hopefully keeps things moist enough for the sphagnum to grow, but not let the soil dry out. We'll see how that goes. But thanks.